Boom. So, I liked that you were talking rulers one day, cutters one day, and I thought, staying with that theme, I thought I should talk about stabilizers more. Because frankly, I can remember when I first started embroidering, I thought stabilizers were the most confusing
Stabilizers is like
thing
a dark art
in the whole world. Eddie, can you I have a little presentation on my system.
And it's a good thing that you're going to teach stabilizers, because when I always tell people a stabilizer gets the medium might tear away and call it good.
Okay, well that's not wrong. However, because there isn't a real definite science to it either. I can only give you my experience and some general rules for you to follow. And then after that, you really do have to try. And you're going to find out you like some brands better than others. And I know a lot of people go, oh no, they're all made by a couple companies. And they just private label them.
There's about 3 companies that make them, yes.
And that's almost true.
Yes.
But it is not 100%
But I do
true.
know that some are made to spec for specific companies.
Yes, and I can tell you that if you go to a big box store that starts with a W and you get a non-branded name there, that stabilizer does not perform the way the other name branders do. It just doesn't. And you can tell almost immediately
Wumbo Mart?
when you open it up. You can even look at the stabilizer and it will look patchy. It's not even uniformly made. That's your first hint that it's a piece of crap. Because if the stabilizer isn't uniform, there's no way it's going to perform the way it should. So I'm going to teach you some basics and tell you how I like to use them. But again, they're guidelines.
Yeah.
And you have to experiment.
And there's lots of tables and different ways to go about stabilizer. Like I said, when people first start out, I always told a medium weight, and then you kind of learn on the fly. So I'm glad you're doing this, Becky, because honestly,
well, I honestly
I'm gonna learn a lot.
disagree with a little bit about what you're saying, but not all of it.
Yeah, but I'm going to learn a lot, because I do know that there is a lot to stabilizer.
Well, the first thing is why do we even need a stabilizer? You know, some people are like, well, it helps hold it in the hoop. That's not really why we use it. We use it because there's got to be a foundation to our fabric so that when we're putting those extra stitches in, it has something to go to. Not all fabric is capable of holding all stitches. Now, that being said, if you're embroidering on cork, I would argue I don't need a stabilizer for cork. Cork is very stable. Cotton is stable-ish. Knits are totally unstable.
And
if there's any stretch to it, that's an unstable fabric.
And if you've got like some batting, just some regular cotton batting, use that, and then use some actual stabilizer batting.
Okay, don't be stealing my
I'm
whole
just gonna
presentation.
I was going to say to see the difference. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
I put a lot of time into this side.
I see that.
Now, the other thing I want to warn you about
is the floor on the background, the new floor in your studio at home?
No, it's just something that came up, and there's that. A poorly digitized design, and they're out there, my friends, is a poorly digitized design. And no amount of stabilizer is going to save that design. And they're out there.
Now, on that note, is there
not yet.
Is there a way to tell?
There are, I can tell you some things, yes.
Okay.
But mostly you'll find out because it's stitches, like too many stitches over, or you'll see, this is my least favorite thing that I see. Somebody will do all of one color, if you will, everywhere, all over, in a larger hoop, and then go back and say, now I'm going to outline everything. No, that's poorly digitized, because as you're, I don't care what your stabilizer is, as you're digitizing over here and then jumping over there, you are moving ever so slightly the fabric and the registration of the first thing you digitize. Now you're changing it when you go to the next one, and you think you're going to come back here and automatically get a clean, crisp outline?
Well, okay. So
no, not unless you make it out of cement. So those are not well digitized.
Okay, so you can usually tell then when it's the digitized
When you watch
by
it.
by the order of stitch and whatnot. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to
Yeah.
be my question, because I sometimes see stuff and I'm like, well, it could be the digitizing, it could be the stabilizer, but it's the order. It's usually the order of the stitching and the digitizing that causes problems.
And the amount
And
of
the amount.
stitching.
Okay.
If they're doing too many overlaps,
Yep.
okay, it's just not okay.
Okay.
It's not necessary, first of all. So let that be known. I'm assuming you have a good, a well-designed, a well-digitized design to start with. Can't help you if you get a crappy one. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there, on Etsy, frankly, that are tooting their horns about being digitizers, and
So if you're an
not
Etsy,
all of them.
if you're an
but
Etsy
you have to be
digitizer and
careful.
you're kind of on the fence and you watch this, you're welcome for the tip.
Yeah. Okay. Let's make this simple, because as you can see, there are zillions of stabilizers, zillions, Eddie,
And that's just a few.
and that's just a few.
And I will say what's nice about Kimberbell is Kimberbell color codes their stabilizer.
Love it.
That's one of the nice things about that. So all the green is usually some sort of fusible, if I remember right.
Okay, well,
Light blue is water.
let's just
soluble.
talk about you can tell me. Show me a cutaway.
A cutaway.
Bring me some cutaways, Brent.
I believe most of the oranges.
There are three categories that we're going to talk about today.
There's cutaway.
Cutaway, tearaway, and wash away. Okay, those are the three categories that you need to put in your brain. And I'm going to tell you how you choose which one of those three categories. That's step one. Am I using a cutaway? Am I using a tearaway? Or am I using a wash away?
Okay.
That's step one. So, when do I use a cutaway? Brent says, always. No, no, not always.
The
No,
re-
he always says tearaway.
I say tearaway.
Okay, well, definitely not always. And I'm going to tell you why.
I'll tell you why I say
Here-
tearaway, because I'm lazy and it's easier to tear it off than cut it off.
Here's where we use a cutaway. A cutaway is really the only permanent stabilizer we have. It is the only stabilizer that's not going to disappear when you laundry an item. And that includes quilts that are going to get washed.
Okay.
A tearaway is a temporary stabilizer. And as soon as you tear it away, or it goes through the laundry, it goes away. Why is that important? Oh, I should have brought one of my t-shirts. My favorite t-shirt, you can tell they used the wrong stabilizer. It goes through the laundry and it went. But anyway, so you want to use cutaway, especially if you're using a knit. Anything with a stretch. This is the most reliable way to hold a fabric. And you can see the one we like the best is what we call
No show.
No show mesh.
no-show mesh.
And I think
okay?
Polypro mesh. It's got a couple different names.
Well, you have to be careful whether you buy the nylon version or the poly version, okay? Because one will melt if you hit it with the iron. So
Yes.
it is important for you to know which one you're purchasing.
Okay.
Because we don't want it to melt when we hit it
Which
with
one
the
melts,
iron.
the poly or the nylon?
The poly.
The poly.
Okay.
So you want to
It
use
will go.
a no-show mesh that's made of nylon. And tell you what, this stuff is super strong, okay? It's, I don't know, Eddie, if you can see, it's got these little waffle tire marks, I call it, in it, that makes it stable in both directions. Okay? That's what's special about this stuff. It's made by many, many companies. It's also made in different weights. Light, medium, and heavy. This is a medium.
And there's a lightweight right here.
Is that a lightweight?
That's a lightweight, yes.
Lightweight mesh cutaway. Yeah, there you go. Now, why do I need, and all my stabilizers, not to confuse you, but all my stabilizers, no, forget it. I'm going to talk that later. Stay with the outline, Becky. You spent a lot of time on it. Okay, so anything that's going to get washed regularly, you want a cutaway. Anything that's stretchy, you want a cutaway. My favorite is the mesh, but it's not always mesh. It can also be,
There's a papery one.
yeah, and this happens to be heavy, and this is a papery one.
And that's probably the one you see most commercial embroiderers use, is going to be that papery one.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah, and most anything you're going to get from that's been done on that
The
embroidery
reason
shop.
I like this is because it's softer and lighter. Does the trick, but doesn't create a big, heavy, hard piece of cardboard in your
And the
your
reason
thing.
that this one gets used by the shops is this one's probably cheaper. It's cheaper than the mesh.
No,
Yeah.
no, because I think something like a monogram, you would want
Yeah.
something like that. You wouldn't want the softer one, because it will, right?
Nope.
No?
No, and I'll cover
Okay.
when you want a heavy versus a lighter. 'Cause
Yeah, and I'm
actually
just
a
saying.
roll.
I'm just saying too that sometimes price does
That's why I wanted
figure
you
into
to
the
do
different.
this.
Yeah.
All right, now the third category is your favorite tearaway.
Well, this is the second category.
I'm sorry, the second category. Oh my God, my day.
I was thinking I missed something, but I think we
All
haven't
right,
covered wash
so-
away yet.
We haven't. Give me a tearaway.
A tearaway.
A tearaway. Show me your tearaways.
We want just regular tearaway.
Yeah, tearaways.
Tearaway.
When do I use tearaways? See, they're all different flavors, all different sizes, all different companies. When do I use the oh, good. He got a light. This is a medium. This is a medium. This is a heavy. We'll talk about how I know which one to use
Later,
later. When do I use these?
when you're embroidering.
I can use these when I don't have something that I'm going to wash frequently.
Okay.
I can use them when I have something that isn't a stretchy fabric, like a,
Wall hanging.
yeah, you wouldn't wash a wall hanging that often. A non-stretchy fabric like cotton. Some people even use it on the back of towels because they're going to pull the back out afterwards and you don't want to see it on the back. There are other options for that, but you'll see it used on that too. My favorite use of the tearaway is in conjunction with another stabilizer. For instance, if I'm hooping up my cutaway
Mm-hmm.
and I'm noticing I'm getting a few more puckers than I would like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to add another permanent labor to my stabilizer. I just want to get it to come out really nice here.
Ah,
If
okay.
I cut a piece of tearaway and I float it under my hoop
Mhm.
while I'm stitching, I get a remarkably different result. I will get it so no puckers appear here at all.
Okay.
I then tear this away. It's done its job. I don't need this anymore. And my product is still firmly stabilized by the cutaway that's going to stay in
Okay.
the project. So my favorite use of the tearaway is in conjunction with another stabilizer.
Okay. We learned something today.
That's where I use it
Yeah,
the most.
and that
And you
makes sense.
literally cut the pieces up and you just float them underneath your hoop while you're stitching your design. Or in my case, I usually baste it on
Yep.
first. So now I've got my fabric, my cutaway, and my tearaway, a complete, nice, compact sandwich. My stitches are going to look so much better.
Okay.
So that's
so,
my favorite use.
So you're saying tearaway then is often used in conjunction with something else. You would.
That's how I use it. The most.
Which makes sense now that you're explaining it, because using it by itself, if it's either temporary or it's only temporary.
It
so-
is temporary.
Yeah.
But in conjunction with another stabilizer,
Yep.
unbelievable results. And not always. You, like I said, you can hoop a towel or a simple little design and
Yep.
get results, and then pull it off. You can do
Yep.
that too. That's not how I most often use it, though.
Can you put the screen back up here, Eddie? Because I want people to see the second bullet point there, just to make sure we cover that.
Oh, thank you. That's important. When you're tearing away your tearaway,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going like this. You're not going, this is my row of stitches. I'm not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing this. I'm going away
Mm-hmm.
from my stitches. If you do not take the time, and I see so many people go, oh, tearaway,
Mm-hmm.
and they just like, get it off. You can ruin your stitches.
Yes, I have seen.
So the purpose of using your stabilizer just went out the window.
Yep.
You have to remove it methodically by taking it away from the stitches you just stitched this way. And I can't tell you how many times I see,
Yep. And then
and
you,
I'm like, no!
and then you look at your design, it's all puckered up, and it's like, well, why did I put the stabilizer on
Yeah.
there? Yep.
Yeah, so that, I'm glad you pointed
Yes,
it out.
okay.
Yeah, it's important how you take it
See,
out.
I'm good for something.
You are, once in a while. You surprise me, Brent. Okay, third kind of category is wash away, which also I'm going to include heat away. You got wash away and heat away for me? I love that you guys get so many stable. I brought all kinds of men, and then we had all, Eddie really was on top of things.
Oh, Eddie, yeah, he's.
Which I love.
Yeah, since I started paying him, he seems to actually be working.
Okay. That's, we're gonna hold off.
Yes, that's what I wasn't sure if you wanted to
Okay,
get into
wash away. This is good, because he gave me a wash away sticky back, so I can introduce how we, no, I cover that later. Okay.
that. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was sticky back.
That's okay. It's a
Okay.
wash away.
Okay.
Wash away is typically used, or heat away.
Yes.
It's typically used on lightweight fabrics, or any time you want it to disappear.
And I
And
know
you
you're gonna,
don't want to tear it out.
you're gonna cover this later, but I just want to throw this out now. We're talking about it. If it's crunchy, crispy wash away,
Yeah.
it is not for the bottom of your design. I'm generalizing. That's topper. The crispy stuff is topper usually.
We're not talking.
I know we're not, but I just want people to be aware of that because if you're buying stabilizer, you see wash away.
Can I hit him yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Why haven't you yet?
I don't know.
She
Okay.
feels bad. Last time
A
she might
lot
have
of
a
people
bruise from
think
it.
of the wash away as the really thin wash away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very thin. And I wanted to let you know that that's not necessarily true. If I'm doing a towel, for instance, I'm going to use this. This is a heavier wash away.
I actually have a hard time sometimes telling if I don't have the labels on the bowl on the. I sometimes cannot tell the no-show mesh from the wash away for some brands.
Well, if you put it in water.
Yeah, if you put it in
you'll be able
water.
to
But I'm
tell.
saying if you just pick it up and you're just
They don't
handling
pour
it,
it.
Yeah.
it's not super obvious to me.
No, I really like using, and you probably tell I love OESD products and Kimberbell products. Those are my two. You learn your
Oh, yeah.
favorites, and they're one of my favorites. And this wash away is really durable. So if I were making freestanding lace, I probably wouldn't use this. I'd use a thinner wash away and probably 2 layers, to be honest with you. Or I would use one layer, and I'll give you some tips about soaking it out too. I got tips for you that make life a whole lot easier.
No, it was warm.
So this is a temporary stabilizer. I use it when I don't want to see it when I'm done, and it will disappear.
Now, does warm water versus cold water
Make a
affect
difference.
the
Yes, I'm going to give you tips on that later.
Okay, I'll keep my mouth shut
No,
then.
that's okay. I wanted to show you though something else on the wash away. Oh, the heat away. Did you bring Kimberbell's heat away? Oh, I have it. There's they call it iron.
Iron away?
Nope, that's the top.
That's the topper,
Okay, we're
yes.
gonna heat away. I'm gonna give you a tip about heat away. Now, I'm not talking about toppings. We're gonna talk about that later. Although, let me tell you, in a pinch, you can use this as a topper as well.
Yes.
Don't
In fact,
think you have to go out and buy special topping stabilizer.
when I first started embroidery, I used that for all my topping. I didn't realize it was a topper.
Yeah, you
I use that for everything.
definitely
The
can use
only
this.
upside to regular topper is it's cheaper.
Yeah, and usually thinner. Now on the heat away, when we do a heat away, sometimes we're embroidering on a fabric that we just can't.
Less topper still.
Yeah, that's not true. That's not true. It's not being used properly. Who wrote that on there?
You did.
What?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did. You gave it back to us.
No, I didn't. I didn't write that on there.
You didn't
I'm
write
going
it
to
up?
tell you where I just used that, and I am in love with that product.
Okay, and I'll pull up the video that says that after you used it, you didn't like it, so.
Okay. All right. Anyway, where is I? Okay. If you're
I think that video
embroidering-
is out there.
if you're embroidering on I wasn't using it correctly. If
You
you're
did say that.
Yes.
In the newest video. Yeah.
If I'm embroidering on a fabric like a satin or a velvet, and I can't put water on it to get it away, but I don't want stabilizer to show, your heat away is the way to go. Because you can apply heat, and
Yep.
it basically evaporates. It doesn't dissolve. The heat away evaporates.
What kind of
Yeah,
evil magic is that?
I know. It's evil magic.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Science.
But I'm
I
gonna
find
tell
some of
you
this stuff,
what.
when you stop and like think about it, some of this is like magic.
It is. So okay, so we've got our 3 categories.
Yes.
Right? Have I confused anybody yet? Everybody's with me?
Everybody's
Nobody
with you so
cares.
far, yeah? No,
Nobody cares.
I don't care if nobody cares. I'm learning a lot.
All right. Here's how, now, I'm going to talk about how to get the best results with the stabilizer you've chosen. All right?
Mm-hmm.
This is something people don't register either, which cracks me up. But whenever possible, I want you to fuse the stabilizer to the back of your project. I don't want you to hoop a piece of stabilizer and hoop, say I'm doing a t-shirt. You see this all the time, and then like, why did it come out right? They hoop a stabilizer, probably a
Yeah.
cutaway,
Yeah.
right, because it's a wearable, and then they hoop the t-shirt, and they go, huh, that didn't come out so good. Well, because you got fabric and you got stabilizer.
And they're moving.
And
Independent,
they, yeah, and so whenever, ever you can, you want to fuse those together,
Now, I'm going to ask a question. I don't know if I'm going to cover this or not.
okay?
Is 505 an acceptable fuse?
It is an acceptable fuse. A temporary spray definitely is an acceptable fuse, but my first go-to is
Fusible
the
sta-
fusible stabilizer. For example, I don't want to do this in a quilt because I got batting I'm putting in it, but the no-show mesh comes as a fusible,
Mhm.
and I love it. And you just fuse it on your shirts first, and then put them in the hoop, and you have the best foundation you can get.
Okay.
If you don't have the fusible, you can certainly put this in, spray it, put your object
Well,
on
if
top
I wanted,
of it.
because I know sometimes when you're doing wearables.
This is not batting in between. This
Yeah.
is
But so this is
fabric
just as a
cut
question
away.
because I'm thinking in terms of if you're doing like a wearable like a shirt.
Yes.
Sometimes it's much easier to not try and hoop it to just lay it on your stabilizer.
this is true.
And if I hit it with some 505, fuse it down,
Yep.
am I good to go?
Yes.
Okay.
You also, that is a good case of use of the sticky backs,
Yeah.
which we'll be talking about,
Yeah.
which I love, sticky backs, for the same reason. You're skipping the spray step, but it's allowing you to make sure your item is stably attached to your stabilizer.
Okay.
So, and every cutaway, tearaway, wash away, all have sticky back versions. They all do. So it's a matter of you deciding what you're trying to hoop. Also,
Is there a fusible heat away? You ironed it on.
heat and gone,
Yeah, fusible heat and gone.
you know, I bet you there is.
I would be curious to see.
I
There's
don't.
a wet and stick.
Yeah, there is a wet and
Florian.
stick.
Yeah,
There's
that's
all
that
sorts
wet and
of-
stick heat and
But
gone.
that- the
But you don't
stickies-
have like a wet and stick water soluble because you're going to wet it to stick it and it's going to disappear. Anyway,
That's not true. That's not true. We have a sticky back wash away right here. It's one of my favorite new stabilizers by Kimberbell.
do you wet it to stick it or do you peel
Nope,
the back off?
you stick it, and then when you go to take it off, you get rid of the stabilizer using water on the
Got the
back.
paper you peel.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But like, but what I'm saying, like, so some that,
Oh, iron on.
yeah, like
Okay,
an
yeah.
iron on, like you have to iron it on with heat.
I
and
really
then
like
it's-
the iron-ons. And another tip I'm going to get you, because we're all talking about using, if you're doing Kimberbell, they're all wanting you to use their interfacing, iron-on interfacing on all your blocks before
Yeah.
you even begin. Iron-on, iron-on mesh.
Okay.
Does the same thing, maybe even better, to stabilize. Just
What's that look
saying.
for? Do you have questions? Somebody gave you a rose?
Okay.
Oh, nice. I'm glad it was you behind the counter, not Eddie, because it would be like, that's kind of weird.
Okay, the other thing I want you to, because I don't know we're running over here, points about, try, as a general rule, I want you to hoop all four sides of your stabilizer. Now, people know when I'm in quilt class, sometimes they'll go, oh, you're using a magnetic hoop, you got 3 out of 4 hooped, you're good to go. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about you're doing a quilt block or shirt or whatever else you're doing. You're not quilting in the hoop. You really want to make sure you get all 4 sides of your stabilizer in the hoop. And you don't want them on the skinny. You want them sticking up at like a 1/2 inch. Don't get so cheesy on your stabilizer. Do not skimp on stabilizers, guys. It's not worth it. So you got to leave it. You got,
I'm taping mine.
well, and you can.
No,
you,
I'm kidding.
you can, but you're going to get better results because that stabilizer, what's it do? It has to be stable.
That makes sense.
Period. No
Okay.
way around that. And I already talked about the multiple layer thing.
Yep.
Do not be afraid about doing multiple layers. And when I say that, I'm not talking about sticking multiple layers in the hoop. I'm still only going to put one piece of stabilizer in the hoop.
You're just going to float one on the back with
Float
tape
one on the
or
back,
whatnot.
on the
Okay.
back.
Yep.
Or sometimes I'll iron something on the product. I'll hoop a stabilizer. If I'm still not getting the results I want, I'll float one. That's 3 different ways I'm using to get a...
This thing's got way more complicated.
Digitizing though,
No,
isn't it?
no, it could be a picture.
Oh.
You know,
Oh,
some
something
of the
that's super
photo
thick, yep.
stuff. You need to really get yourself raring to go for those, or they're not going to come out nice. You'll get those little buckles in your fabric. Everybody
I'm-
ever get those buckles?
Yeah.
When,
I'm looking at your outline.
okay,
I have a question.
match the weight. Okay.
Oh, I'll wait till you get to the bullet point.
Okay. To Danny's question on when do I know when to use light, heavy, medium, on either one of these categories, I want you to look at the material you're embroidering. If it's a heavy material like a cap
Mm-hmm.
or a pair of jeans, I want you to choose the heavy stabilizer, the heavy cutaway, the heavy tear away, the heavy wash away.
Nice.
You as a rule of thumb, and there's always exceptions to every rule, but you go heavy material, heavy stabilizer, light material, light stabilizer. It's almost the
That makes it easy.
yeah, it's almost the opposite of what people want to do sometimes. They
Yeah.
go, I'm making lace, and it's going to be a mess if I don't use a heavy stabilizer. And I'm thinking, no, if you're working with something very light, you want to keep the stabilizer light.
Okay.
You don't want to.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
It does, yeah.
It's the opposite of what I see people doing. I'm like, no, heavy, light, got it. Medium is probably the most often used one for our industry in here.
Because of the
Because of what
quilting
we
cotton
embroider.
is going to be
Yep.
usually medium weight. Yep.
The other thing, though, and that's why I say stitch count does matter.
See, here's my question on that, because I've seen charts where it's like, oh, I have so many stitches, use this. But the problem is, the amount of stitches in a 4x4 hoop,
Yep,
if it's the same amount of stitches and it's in a 8x10 hoop or a 8x12 hoop,
exactly.
if it's the same amount of stitches, the density is way different, so that rule doesn't hold up. Or
Here's
does it?
what I do. No, it doesn't. So
Okay.
here's what I do. I match to my material first.
Mm-hmm.
Then and don't be afraid to add stabilizer as you're going either. Stop your machine if you're going, oh, I see a little pucker happening right there. Stop your machine. Float another piece underneath it. Don't think you have to scrap it and start all over again. You've just got one tiny little area you're not happy with. Guess what? There's going to be more. If there's one, there's going to be more. Stop your machine and throw. That's the floating is a huge way to save
Yeah,
your designs. Huge way.
that makes sense, yeah.
So don't be afraid to stick that underneath there. And then, because
Then
you
but the
got to
sti-
think about stitch count, but I can't choose a stabilizer based on
Okay,
stitch
thank
count.
you for saying that, because that's what I've seen charts. There's a chart out there that says if it has this many stitches, heavy versus light, but that chart never made sense to me because it's density. It's not necessarily
Yeah.
the count of the stitches,
Stitches,
it's how dense
exactly.
those stitches are.
Exactly. And in that case, I'm going to vote for multiple layers.
Yeah.
I'm not going to necessarily say, give me that heavy cutaway now, because I don't want that feel when I'm done.
Yeah,
So that's when I would vote for a
Okay.
multiple layer.
that makes sense.
You have to have a stash. Okay. Don't be afraid to float items either. You can't hoop every item. You can't hoop a onesie. I see people do it and I go, why are you doing that?
The way you rolled your eyes just
Hoop your stabilizer. Definitely hoop your stabilizer. And then use one of the adhesion methods we've
Yep.
already talked about. Get a sticky back stabilizer for that onesie, or use your 505. Get that foundation down really good, and you're good to go. Likewise, sometimes you'll see I hoop the item, but not the stabilizer.
Oh, okay.
Because sometimes I've got an interfacing or fusible on the back of my item already,
Yep.
and I want it nice and taut,
Yeah.
but it's already pretty stable. So I'm going to hoop that, and then I'm going to float the stabilizer. So you can float either one, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to do it. Just know you have to anchor it down. Some people use pins, too, to pin it in place. Pins are helpful, but it's not the same as using a sticky back. When you use a sticky back, you've got that thing, or 505. I
Yeah.
personally don't like 505 because it's messy.
I just use it as kind of a
But
catch-all
it's,
brand
a
for
lot
spray
of people
adhesive. Yeah.
swear by it and
Yeah,
love
there's a
it.
couple other versions of other brands
I'd rather
of it.
use a
But
sticky back stabilizer, and I'm going to tell you a way to save money on that
do we
too.
talk about toppers?
Toppers are really underrated, people. I'm going to throw a challenge out there. I want you to start using toppers more and more and see if you notice a difference in your designs.
And I will say one of the things about the toppers specifically are very inexpensive as far as stabilizer
They're
goes.
inexpensive, and your lines will be so much
And you don't
sharper.
have to hoop them. You can just throw it on there,
You
right?
don't hoop them. I've seen people hoop them. I don't know why you would do that. You can literally throw them on there, or you can tape them on there if you're like me and you want them to just
If you're like
stay
me,
put.
you just throw it on there.
Throw in there. The purpose of that topper is to create a barrier between your fabric and your stitches. So normally we think of only using it when we have something with a pile,
Yep.
and we don't want the stitches to sink in. Well, guess what? A T-shirt, anything with a little.
Little bit. Okay.
I'm telling you, I used it on T-shirts, and they come out amazingly different. And I'm talking regular big appliques and regular big lettering. But it keeps
I can
the
see.
stitches on top of the fabric instead of sinking into the fabric.
Okay.
Now, sometimes I want my stitches to sink in, like when I'm using a batting or something like that. But most often I do not. And the toppers are very inexpensive. And speaking of toppers, something I've discovered with this one with all the nasty words on it. And I'm going to give you some hints on wash away toppers soon. It's not in here, so. But try them on nearly everything.
Yeah.
I think you will be you'll go, what? And I'll tell you how to easily get them off after. But I want to specifically,
Let's talk about the heat
Point
because
out
I've
this
had
heat one
I had
again.
somebody else have real bad experience with the heat.
well,
one, and
we
I'm-
weren't using it properly.
Okay.
But let me tell you what I've discovered about this that I think is amazing.
What's that?
The heat that you have to apply to remove it is a much higher heat than the warm water in your washing machine, or the
Okay.
hot water in your washing machine, or even the air in your dryer.
Okay.
So when you have this underneath your stitches and you don't iron, press, hold
Yeah.
it there for a little while, let it evaporate. It
Yeah.
does. It doesn't evaporate from underneath your design. It
Okay.
does not. It stays there because it needs contact of that heat to disappear. So what some people are having is they're like, I can't get it all. Well, it's because you've got stitches too, so you got a little of this going on, you know? So you've got to have direct application of the heat for it to go away. The cool thing is,
You blame my brother.
do that. That was pretty cool. I probably can never do that again. The cool thing
If you-
is
if you would've
it
caught it, it would've been awesome.
stays
Yeah, that would've been
behind.
cool.
Let's say you're using this on a towel.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. This is amazing. We usually reach for the wash away topper,
Yeah.
right? That's what we've been told. Wash that towel 10 times.
It's gone.
All of a sudden, all the little pieces of your towel are coming up through. You're
Okay.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's one of my ideas for an embroidery class.
Yeah.
Beginner embroidery.
Okay.
That it starts to poke up because it's a wash away.
But,
It washes away.
but that one takes direct heat, so it's going to stay there forever.
This one stays there.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yes.
I do a lot of towels and I've done the wash.
The wash away. Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me, because I've given away his gifts and stuff, but, so you're saying after it's washed a lot? and
Yeah.
that-
It's gone.
A lot. It's going to take a lot, though, isn't it?
No,
No. Okay.
no, you're done in 5, 6.
That's a lot.
On a towel?
Yeah.
We're talking about the.
Like
the
say I
wash
did a
away.
beach
Yeah,
towel,
like
which
that.
was, I don't want my beach towel looking ratty after X amount of washes.
I hear you.
I really,
So I
this,
should be
Diane,
using
I
that.
want you to try this heat
Well,
away.
I did. She gave it to me to use, I did on the, Mickey,
Yeah.
as an animal,
Okay,
to keep it down, because I would have used the other one, because that's all I have at home.
right.
But she gave it to me to try here. And, I mean, I haven't done anything with it yet, but,
So you're saying that it's gonna stay under the stitches because it doesn't have grip? direct contact with the iron.
Yep.
So it's gonna stay longer, your stitches
For
are gonna stay
ever.
fresher.
Yep.
So when they do an
I like
archaeological dig
Yep.
of your laundry room, they're gonna find that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if you don't believe me, take a washcloth, monogram it,
And then
and wash it.
just keep throwing them in
And watch
laundry.
what happens, wash away versus heat away.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I learned something.
like it.
It's
Yeah.
really amazing. The more I get used to this product, the more I like it.
Cool.
And at first, I was one of those
I've-
people
I had
that
a
thought
few
it was
I had a-
yucky
yeah.
You
too.
can have some of that here and stuff.
I should,
Yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I had somebody buying like this is awful, and I knew
That's
we got
because we're
some, yeah.
not using it
Yeah.
properly.
In fact,
There's truly, that's all
One
it
of them,
boils.
yeah.
Yeah, it all boils down to using it properly. But so anyway,
Well, the little hot irons get hot enough for that.
with a little hot
The
iron.
cricket.
The little cricket press.
To do the removal of it?
Yeah, yeah.
She means to remove it? Yes.
Well,
Yes.
because they're
oh,
dig-
they
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Okay.
It takes about 240 degrees.
Okay.
So my little hot iron, I think 240 is probably the middle
Okay.
of the road. It gets much hotter than
How
that.
about 240? Okay.
Yeah.
The Kimberbells you have to hold longer than the other brands.
You do.
Yeah.
So
You
Okay.
do.
just keep
You do.
in
It's
mind.
more of a 10-second thing.
Cool.
But it's worth it. It's worth it, in my opinion. Okay. All
Well,
right.
you're the backhander. That was getting violent.
Sticky back. Here's
Try to
some.
be like you guys.
Now here comes my tips.
Okay, tips.
I know I like sticky back. Some people don't. They are more money, but I'll tell you what, they can also save you money. And I covered this on a show before. When I'm hooping a sticky back, I'm hooping this whole thing with sticky back. I'm then doing one little section.
Yep, just
One
patch
little
the whole-
section.
Yeah.
And because it's sticky back, I don't have to take it out of my hoop and rehoop the whole thing.
Yep.
I can cut a small piece of sticky back, stick it over that hole, and I'm back in business.
Okay. Nice.
So you don't end up wasting all of this over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, this next tip comes from Danny. And I actually really
And if there's
like
a frugal person, it is Danny.
it.
I will
Danny,
teach you all about saving pennies.
Danny says, hey, keep your stabilizer on the roll. The stabilizers aren't cheap, but you can't cheap out on them either, people, though. You're going to get crappy results if you do. Danny likes to do this. Danny likes to put her stabilizer in.
Nope. Put it towards this. There you go.
Well, okay.
Why that way versus the other way?
I think this weighs more on this particular
On
size.
that size,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, so
okay.
basically what she's doing, and if it's a smaller roll, she's going this way. Becky's got a bigger roll, so she's going
I
this
put it
way.
in front of the machine. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do I?
And then you actually embroider with it in the roll,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
cut
I
it
think that's
after.
a great idea.
Yeah. Now what happens is
Well, now
she leaves this
listen.
attached
Yeah,
when she goes and embroiders. She likes to have
you'd
it.
have to flip it to the other side.
She likes
I
to
think.
have it in front of her normally.
Yeah.
No, I could just let it go on the floor.
No, but see, if it's like that, it's going to be on the underneath your
No,
in
this-
the arm. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's going to go
okay.
in.
That's
Yeah.
All
why
right.
it's usually in front.
Yeah.
But
She likes to keep it in the front of her like this, okay? And then she does all her embroidery, and then she takes it out of the hoop.
I even moved it to drawing.
Okay, I didn't cover that, but I bet you do.
Look at girl.
And then
I'll cover that too. And then she cuts the stabilizer. Now, what she is able to do is instead of cutting a piece this big to put in the hoop, if she moved her design all the way over here,
she can then just cut.
she
cut
takes it
there.
off and maybe her design ended here. So now she's using literally half the stabilizer.
It's an interesting trick.
But it depends on the design. 'cause
It
if
does,
If
but-
you're taking it in and out with an applique, it's
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
less.
A little,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's, but tearaway tearaway. Sticky back may become your friend in those cases because you don't have to hoop the whole thing again
Yep.
to get it to work. So anyway, that was that. And you were talking about I can't tell what's what.
Keep your labels. and-
keep your labels inside your rolls.
I think
okay?
that's a great the
Kimberbell, you're right, they're color coded, but once that label comes
Yeah.
off, if you haven't bought the wristband, you still don't know what
Yeah,
you
you
got.
gotta you put the label.
So
yeah.
you can put it in there. And at home, I actually have cutaway, tearaway.
Of course you do.
wash
Of course you do.
separate bins for everything.
Batting and
batting
stability, yes.
as a stabilizer. A lot of times in our heads, we don't think of them as stabilizers, but they are.
Yes.
And
Some battings will work better than others.
exactly, Kimberbell's project batting,
Yeah.
a great stabilizer. Gives you that little bit of fluff, so you got to want that. Hoop Sisters Battleizer, which is very similar to Quilter's Dream 80-20.
And I think Quilter's Dream also does a 70-30. That's a,
I haven't had experience with that, but the 80-20 I really like.
yeah, I don't know if they still make the 70-30, but I know the 80-20 works really good, but the 70-30 is very similar. That blend of the 80-20 is a really good stabilizer
so-
batting.
What blend is Kimberbell?
I don't know that
we don't have it
I
here.
don't know
think
they
they
tell
kept
us.
it,
Yeah, I don't know
They just call it project
My suspicion
batting,
is
but-
probably like an 80-20 or 70-30. The
Yeah,
80
this is just really stable.
Yeah,
It's
80-20
really stable.
yeah.
I love it.
80-20, 70-30, that blend is right in that sweet spot for stabilizers.
And you can tell, take your
Yeah.
batting. If you're getting stretch with it, it's not a good
Yeah,
stabilizer.
but
people.
100% cotton will stretch without any sort of without any additives to it.
Yeah.
And that, like I said, most of the stuff I've seen, the 80-20 blend is a really good place to be.
Yeah. The other stabilizer that we don't often think of as a stabilizer, and it is Terrell Magic, which is a liquid stabilizer. If you use it as instructed, which is soaking it in, and it means you use a lot, frankly. You soak it in that, and then you almost let it dry, and then you iron your fabric. That stuff comes out like paper. Sometimes you don't even need another stabilizer once you've done that. That's how stiff
I've
that
actually
will
the last few t-shirt quilts I've done, that's how I've done them.
be. You use the
I
Terrell.
just use Terra Magic and that's it. I don't even put the back on or anything. It's
Yeah.
way easier because you're not ironing.
Yeah.
You just soak it.
But keep
and
in
it
mind,
stiffens
that
up
is
nice.
a temporary stabilizer.
But yeah, for a t-shirt quilt it works great because once you get it quilted, you don't care.
Yep. Okay, now I've told you I like toppings, so I'm going to give you a tip for removing the water wash away topping. Which, by the way,
85-15, whose is that? Kimberbell's is 85-15. Yeah, that's
85-15.
that's
so-
about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Kimberbell wash away. Sinners have this as topping,
Mm-hmm.
so it's less money. But I've already told you can use your regular wash away in
Yep.
a pinch. No, it's more money, but
Yep.
same one's thinner, I think. You get it
I-
on the product, and what people hate is getting it off the product. Now I just told you, hey, consider using it more often, and people are going, ugh, then I have to take it off. I don't want to take it off. There's some easy ways to take it off. One way is that after your product comes out, your item comes out, take a good quality paper towel, not like the kind you buy, like a Bounty, okay? Cover your design with your Bounty.
That was awesome.
Spritz it with water, right? We all got water, handy dandy. Spritz it with water. Take your iron the wet paper towel on your product.
Okay.
Then you will see that the paper towel is almost stuck, but not stuck. When you carefully peel that paper towel away, it takes all the water soluble with it,
Okay.
including the nook and crannies.
Oh, cool.
So that's much easier than dunk, dunk, dunk.
Yeah.
The other thing that I love doing, and it must be because, I'm weird, water soluble sticks to water soluble. It's like a magnet to one another. So let's say you've removed all your extra water soluble around your design. Then I spritz my design with water. I'm not dunking it, I'm spritzing it, okay? Then I take the water soluble that I've already taken off,
Yeah.
and I stick it over my design, and I press it.
And it'll pull off.
And
all
then
the-
you pull it off quick like a Band-Aid. Everything comes off.
That's awesome.
Nice.
It's just like, boom!
It almost sounds
Plus
like
it's
you would-
really fun to
It sounds
do.
like you would enjoy that. It's like popping the bubbles in
Yeah.
bubble wrap.
Yeah. It's really, and you aren't, it's not costing you anymore because you already have
Yeah.
these scraps.
Yeah, I heard the scraps,
I've
yeah.
seen people take a tennis ball,
Yeah.
a wet tennis ball, and they wrap it with the water soluble. Have you seen that?
No.
And then they go roll, 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 roll,
Roll
to
your
get it
ball.
off. And I'm like, just take your scraps, put them down,
Yeah.
wet it first, spit 'em out, and then it's so much funner.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, so it isn't hard to get off, and it doesn't mean you have to soak the whole product
Okay.
either. So hopefully you use it more, not less. And last Lee, is have a stash of stabilizer. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, right tool for the job. I think that's a real
Yeah,
good.
that's really what
yeah.
I want to leave you with. You
Yeah.
know, if it you got and experiment
Yep.
because different
And
people are like different things.
Like I keep saying, this is a hobby. It is supposed to be fun. It's
Yeah.
your hobby. You enjoy it. Spend some money on it. No, I mean, it's
I
just,
have this.
and I'm just saying that I think a lot of people get caught in that idea as it's expensive or this, but this is for fun. And why make it hard on yourself? Spend a couple extra bucks and enjoy it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's you know what, and that's just one of the things that. I mean, I say that because I'm selling you the stuff, but I think this applies for all hobbies. You're supposed to be enjoying it, so don't be afraid to spend a little money on it.
I think you're right, because sometimes I can be too frugal and I'll mess up,
Yeah.
and then I didn't save any money because after stuff.
Yeah, but you also didn't have any fun because you messed it up, and it's like, no, look at this. It's
Yeah.
one of those. I think
Yeah.
sometimes people forget that as a hobby, this is how you've chosen to spend your time, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you have all sorts of hobbies, so there's nothing wrong with spending a little bit of money on yourself to enjoy your hobby. I know some people need to hear that sometimes. You're worth it.
I'm not one of those people.
I know, but it's actually it's a well studied phenomenon because when women buy high cost items, usually their thought process is way different. Like if you come in and you're going to buy like a super expensive machine, usually it's like, well, so and so needs a new set of tires. I need to help so and so needs a new set of shoes. They think of
I
all-
don't deserve to spend.
Yeah, because they're thinking of everybody else in their life that needs
That's
it, and
not
it's.
me.
I know, but that is a process that a lot of people walk through. Whereas guys are totally different. Guys are just like, I want a new chainsaw. I'm gonna go get a new chainsaw. You know, they don't care that their children are starving and barefoot. They're gonna. That's for mom.
mom's
That's
duty.
what moms worry about, not dads.
Oh goodness.
But anyway,
All right.
I guess that's it.
Stabilizer.
Yeah. Wow, we made a day out of that one.
Well,
That's a good one though.
hopefully.
There's
That
more.
I was gonna say, there's a lot in there. I would recommend that share this with your friends because this was a really good. I learned a lot on as far as stabilizer goes. I don't think there's a. It's good information. This is a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually wrote it down.
Yeah,
too,
she
on
wrote it down.
slideshow,
Nice.
So.
But anyway, I hope you all learned something. I know I sure did. Thanks for joining us, and join us again next week for another episode of Shenanigans with Brent and Becky. Remember,
Woohoo.
sew on and be excellent to each other.